Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Heredia, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. All right, welcome back, everybody. As you can see here, it's turning into the normal cast. We can't get enough of this guy, Chris Brennan, once again. He has nothing but good stories, so we got to keep coming back. And, we've talked a lot about different fights he's had, different, stories. I love it so far. I know myself, I've been fortunate enough to be able to fight in many different places. You have too. What are some of your favorites, man? Where do you like to go fight? What countries? And what do you dislike? Tell both of them.
Country-wise, I don't know. Country-wise, probably the United States, but fighting in Hawaii was always the best. We fought in Hawaii a lot. I fought in Hawaii a lot, and then my students fought in Hawaii a lot. So Guam was also awesome. Guam, we had a really cool experience in Guam. Other than that, man, I fought in the UK, I fought in Brazil, I fought in Japan, and I fought in the United States, and I always like home.
Mexico.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I fought in Mexico also. That was nothing to brag about on either one of those.
What about
twice to fight Shannon Rich.
Oh yeah. Now I always had a good time when I went to Japan to fight. I thought the crowd was very educated.
For sure.
And they're very respectful there. I really liked the culture over there. What did you think about it?
Oh yeah, Pride was awesome. Actually, either event was awesome just because the fans would wait for you in the lobby of the hotel just to give you gifts and stuff. Yeah. And leaving on the Pride bus, they would throw flowers and stuff at the bus. Like a concert, like a rock star,
That's cool.
So it was very cool fighting in Japan. I when you asked my favorite, I was kind of basing off of treatment. So I liked fighting in Hawaii because something shady was always going on in Japan.
Yeah, well, 100%. Yeah, I just always had a good time. I like, once again, the respectfulness of the fans. It's so weird. Like they're quiet during the fight, because they're not yelling and bashing. And if something good happens, they get excited, they clap, and they'll sit back down and it's be quiet. Like somebody almost gets submitted or put an arm bar, they and then they cheer, and then it gets out of it and back to quiet. You can hear the fighters breathing. It's so weird. You can hear every cornerman instruction. It's so different from America or really any other country, I think.
Even if you just pass the guard, the crowd goes crazy. But for example, my first big crowd there, because when I fought Gomi, it wasn't that big. But my first big crowd there was when I cornered Rampage and Sakuraba, and you come out on a ramp that's 60 feet high, and it lowers and then walks you out, and then lowers and walks you out, and there's I think 70,000 people at that, and it was dead silent, like eerie silent. It was pitch black and just a spotlight on Rampage, and once the lights went on, it was just whoa! It was so crazy the first time.
Man, I'm surprised he even made it there with all the poison and everything that was going on. Yeah, that's right.
Hey, that's why we got you back on, Chris. This is your fourth trip down here, so thank you.
You think we're gonna finish this today? I don't know.
I don't know. So. We're 50-50, I think. But the thing is you go back to the real early days, and you mentioned Guam, and I remember Guam was Guam is basically a military base, but there was definitely an MMA scene there in the early days with guys that trained, and it's a between point Japan. So why don't you share your Guam experience with us?
Oh, I've always got a story, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even fight in Guam, but my brother, one of my brothers fought there. One of my students, Josh Smith, Adam Lynn, and they fought a week apart. There was 2 different weekends of events.
What?
So the guy brings us out, and I'm on Guam for 14 days now, 15 days, I think. But
wow.
So the first trip or the first week we're out there, we get a rental car. They give us a rental car for the entire week. They give us a phone that calls back home because cell phone back then couldn't call back home. And I think who fought first? I think the first weekend Adam fought Kato, and Kato was a stud. And
Tetsuji?
Yes.
Okay.
And Adam head kicked him, and he won the fight. And there was a head kick picture on the newspaper the next day with sweat coming off of Kato's face and a shin kick in the face in the paper the next day. But So we were celebrating when we left, and we went through this construction site in the rental car, end up going off a cliff and destroying the bottom of this rental car. And then, so long story short, Adam and Josh, Adam went, oh no, Buck also fought. Buck Greer triangled Laverne Clark over there. It was a really good night. Yeah. And so the following weekend, my brother makes his debut. He fights for the first time. And after he wins, they asked me to referee Dan Severn's fight. And Dan Severn fights a guy named King Kong, gigantic dude.
Sure, it was on the up and up.
Well, every time we talk about it, I think about it. I feel like it was, because it's the first time I've been inside a ring when heavyweights were fighting. And Dan Severn's not even a hard-hitting guy, but he was hitting this dude with body shots that were just echoing in the ring. It was like thud, thud. And I'm like, God, they hit so hard for heavyweights. Anyway, the main event is a cop versus a thug from Enson's gym. Okay. And they want me to ref it. So I ref the match. The cop knocks out the guy, okay? Knocks him out cold. I jump in, and he starts trying to fight back after I jumped in, but he was out cold. Well, they had to escort us out of the arena. They had to escort us to our hotel room, and then they had to find a different hotel to transfer us to until the next day, because all of Enson's guys were after me because I called the fight. So Enson's not even on the island. I'm messaging Enson, begging him, like, bro, get your guys to stop. Like, there's all these guys outside the hotel, and it's just me and my brother and Josh Smith, like 3 people, and I'm on an island. So I'm trying to get Enson to call off the dogs, right? And he's like, well, send me the video. Let me see the video. I'm like, what is this video? Like, get the guys to stop, right? We're homies. I've known you for a long time, and so. I end up actually sending him a clip of the video, and he's like, yeah, he was out. And he gets everyone to leave me alone. And I was just like, what the hell, man? You guys asked me to ref a fight on short notice, and this is what I get from it?
Lucky you were right.
Yeah.
I was right. Yeah. Oh, lucky I was right. Yes, definitely lucky I was right. If he said no, bro, he wasn't out, I'd have been in trouble.
Yeah. His decision would have changed. Yeah. Let me slip this in. So Adam Lynn, you mentioned one of your students.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be on a Shooto card in Las Vegas where John Fitch and Shoney Carter had fought, and his fight got canceled.
I cornered Shoney Carter that night, and he puked in the corner.
That's correct. Right.
Yeah.
So, do you think that the athletic commission was aggressively trying to cancel that event?
Oh, well, I don't know, but I was there because Erica was supposed to fight, and Erica's opponent fell down the escalator the night of the fight, and the fight didn't take place. So then Shoney asked me if I would corner him, so I said yes. Okay.
Yeah, there was only 4 fights that night, and the athletic commission was just, if you look at the canceled bouts, they were just canceling everything.
Oh, and really? Are you saying they pushed Erica down the escalator though?
No,
possibly.
Her opponent.
That's a good clip.
Fell down the escalator.
Was that the boxing commission doing that, or was it an accident? What the hell happened?
I don't know, but back then, if I would have had to fight her, I'd have fallen down the escalator too.
Yeah.
Did you have any dealings with Armando Garcia, the former athletic commissioner for California?
No.
God, I wish we could get somebody that did. That guy is interesting guy. So that takes us September 22nd, 2007. Cage Rage 23. Gene Silva. He's a shoot box guy that later trained with the London Shoot Fighters. What do you recall about that event?
Oh man, well, that was me trying to fight again after Marcelo destroyed my ribs, and pretty much every fight after that Marcelo thing was didn't pan out for me. My ribs were the reason I retired from fighting until I finally found a doctor who would give me a cortisone shot in my ribs, and they, had to put me on a CT machine and watch every time they put it in. They'd slide me in the machine, see how far it went, because they didn't want to get to my lungs, and they end up putting cortisone in my rib cage. and it made the pain go away. I've got 3 ribs still that healed like this. So it was like a giant knot on my rib cage. So I use it as a weapon from side control now, but I couldn't do, training and stuff after that was it ruined me for years. So I trained for that fight. And here's the most embarrassing part about that fight. Gerald Streven beat him. So I took the fight thinking, I'll be okay. And I was winning in the fight. I was taking him down, I was laying the stuff on the feet, and he ends up kneeing me in the head and splits my head. It's the only time I've been cut in all of my fights. Don't be jealous, Chris.
I get cut all the time.
I know.
How'd you do that? I guess you move your head more. I don't know. That's cool.
A lot of jiu-jitsu.
Damn.
But yeah, so I end up the refs stopped that fight, TKO, I think. I think that
Second round.
Was it TKO?
Yeah, KO second round.
But I couldn't fight. Like he ended up on top of me at one time, and I couldn't move because of my ribs. And I continued to try and fight again. Like they paid me really well. And Gene Silva was really cool because that's the only fight in my 36 pro fights that I didn't make weight for. I missed weight by 1 pound. And I offered him the 20%. He didn't take it. He said, no worry about it, because he saw me trying to make the weight, and it was super cool. So I was like, bro, thank you so much. And they paid US cash, just like Pride did. It was crazy. They're the ones that I said that handed Vitor the 2 envelopes with $100,000 cash in it. And I was just like, wow.
Man.
Here on the undercard, Vitor Belfort, or if that was the main event, fought James Zekic. So James Zekic is a London shoot fighter guy. You fought a London shoot fighter guy. Did you go out with those guys at any point? Because Lee Murray probably would have been there. Yeah,
no, I didn't. I never went out. I didn't go to one after fight party my entire career. I don't drink. I was probably everyone thought I was stuck up, but I was just kept to myself a lot.
I have a question about the fight. I remember I fought there once, and I found the ring to be very like the netting really kind of threw me off a little bit because you lean against that and you don't just, it's not like a fence or a cage. You sink into it really far. I'm like, oh, if I like this, it just threw me off for a minute. I thought it was awkward.
Yeah. So you know how you have someone against the fence and get the bounce for the takedown. I used that in that fight, but it didn't give as much. Or it gave a lot. It didn't give the bounce that I needed. I got the takedown, but it was much different than I expected. And I didn't get in the cage before and kind of check it out and bounce around. And it was like very like flimsy or something.
Yeah. It's weird. It's just not what you used to. I guess if you got used to it, it'd be different. Yeah. It's a net.
It's like a net instead of a cage.
Yeah.
You fought in Cage Rage also, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was at Wembley Arena. It was pretty sweet in London.
I think that's where I fought too. I believe. I can't remember now offhand, but I thought it was a good event. They were good. I enjoyed it. They're tough guys, man.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So Chris Brennan, you had Andy Greer, who I have accidentally said things about on this podcast. But he was one of the partners. And then there was a guy, O'Donnell, that was the other partner. And they both have shaved heads. They both kind of look like twins. And O'Donnell, like when you watch your Cage Rage, he can't keep his jaw together because he's so wired. Yeah. Did you notice like a lot of cocaine at that show?
I don't know. You said something about it. O'Donnell was the guy that I dealt with there. And
he was super high energy. And
yeah.
Mike, they probably do the cocaine in the back room. They probably don't do it right in front of the fighters.
I thought they maybe done it with Chris Brennan. No, okay.
No.
Okay. I mean, you don't drink. I just figured you'd be first in line for that. Okay.
There is the outside chance, Mike, that the guy's just high energy.
No. No.
Not a chance.
No. It's like watching Dirty Bob Schreiber walk into the cage. Like you knew he just did a line of something and he's coming back to earth. Okay, so $200,000. Miguel, how do I think this is your forte. How would you get $200,000 from London to Brazil or California? You can't put that in your luggage.
Who had $200,000?
Vitor Belfort. That's what you were saying.
no.
2 envelopes.
He had 50 in each one for $100,000.
So, but that's still.
Yeah.
There are ways.
Yeah.
You know,
we used to,
I mean,
transport money from Japan back pretty, you know, there were ways.
just what I would do is I'd look at the card and see how many Brazilians, see how many cornermen he has, and you split it up. That's the easiest way. That's the safest way.
I don't trust those people.
You know, you got to trust the people and stuff like that. You do got to be careful, but you know, I mean, if you're heading back to Brazil to home and you're going to cross Vitor Belfort, you're probably going to hear about it. You know what I mean? There's stories down there. I'll tell one off the wall story. Was Minotauro coming back. Now Minotauro stopped by after winning the Pride belt in Florida and left it there, and I had to mail it back to him. And when he got to Brazil, he had a duffel bag with his pay, which I don't know if it was 150, but it was a large amount of money like that, a duffel bag. And he left it in the taxi. He forgot it in his taxi, and he got out of it and got to his house. And he also left his cell phone there. And because he was already getting a little bit famous, he called his cell phone from his house and talked the taxi driver into bringing him his duffel bag back.
Holy crap.
Yeah, but that was, you know,
Wow.
let's just say when I heard it, I heard 150, I think, and that sounds about right for his level. And let's just say that, you know, Minotauro Nogueira.
Forgot everything. His cell phone, his duffel bag, his pride belt.
Yeah, his pride belt was in Florida. I had a double header. They fought Saturday night and left on Lambert's plane on Sunday night. And on Sunday, during the day, while our second show was going on, Lambert calls me from the airport. He goes, I need you to bring the belt. And I was like, I got a show. He goes, yeah, but I really need you to do this for me. So, you know, it's Dan. I had to. I got to show at the second fight.
Chris Brennan, you had mentioned that Enson Inoue is he's a man of influence. You know, and
the strong arm influence. I just saw him this last year.
Pardon me?
I just saw him this last year. It's the first time I've seen him in about 15 years.
How would you describe him for our audience at home? Because I'm kind of at a loss for words in doing so. And I've got a ton of respect for him too.
Oh yeah. I mean, he is, well, you're either going to respect him or he's going to make you respect him, one or the other. He's connected to the top, man. Like, this guy has lived in Japan for a really long time. He rolls with the Yakuza. He has a business in Hawaii that he comes back and makes jewelry for people. But like, he only shows up for appointments. He comes back from Japan to Hawaii for appointments to make jewelry for people because it's him making it, and stays for a couple days and goes back. But he is, you know, him and his brother have always been pretty, I don't know, connected for sure, but like, Enson's an intimidating dude, right? And you know just by the way he carries himself, and the people that he hangs with, and his dogs, like, he just doesn't play, right? Like, the guy's no joke. And I kind of hung out with Egan. He got himself into some trouble in Brazil when I was down there, and I kind of helped him at the airport when he was trying to leave Brazil. But so I've always kind of been in their good graces. But we've always got along. But yeah, Enson he's a different dude. But like, nobody tries to cross him.
Yeah, no, he's a godsend too, because for a lot of Americans, he's a little bit of a watchdog savior. He watches over guys when you're on his side when you go to Japan. And I've heard many stories about him helping people out. You know what I mean?
Super, super nice guy for sure.
Until he's not.
Right.
Where my respect comes from is people say many things about where he's at in society. You guys can read between the lines on that and what he does. But at the end of the day, like, sometimes when people have that big reputation of, you know, being a tough guy, maybe some muscle at some point, they don't ever really put it on the line. They just kind of sit back and they let the rumors or the mystique kind of carry them, as we had discussed in the first episode with, a Brazilian that we won't name now. And both of them put it on the line and had no problem taking losses in front of a country that feared them.
Right.
Like I
fought
respect the Inuits.
He fought with more heart than anybody ever, right? Like,
yeah,
his fights were grueling to watch.
So it was like he had this huge reputation. Obviously, you don't ever want to lose that, but he was so unconcerned about losing the reputation, but also wanting to fight the highest levels of competition that, he's got a beat up record because, no, I'm one of you. Like there's no difference here. And no, I respect the Inuits a lot.
For sure.
So you take 2 years off. Was that because of the rib injury?
Yeah.
And in that period, you're concentrating on your gym. I got a list of black belts. I'm going to name a couple of them. Let's start with your first black belt, your first student. I know you've touched on him in the past. Jeremy Williams. Just a real quick thoughts of him as a person and a student.
Oh, I mean, I kind of touched on him last time. Great person. Very emotional. Like I said, he was super happy, super sad, super angry, super funny. It was like dramatically one thing or the other. But his jiu-jitsu skills were, his MMA skills, his striking skills, like his skills in general were just phenomenal. He was tall, 6'2", and long and rangy, fought at 170 and 185. Was just, he had my stuff from the get-go. Like he was my student from day one, so he had all my best stuff, and it was just it was just awesome. Stud.
What about Mauricio Zingano, somebody that you had trained with?
Yeah, I trained with Mauricio a lot. Me and Mauricio got in a lot of street fights together. With a lot. Like he was part of the Me Layman and those guys all the time. Hung with him a lot. Real good dude. He was only a blue belt at the time when I was training with him. So, I know later he went on to get his black belt. He might have got his purple belt while I was still hanging out with him. But yeah, he was a good dude. He was funny, super funny.
Yeah, it was a shame when he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. One of your teachers, Josh Bosquez.
Yep. Savage. Like he was my second black belt. And he's a guy that I met when I moved out here to Texas, and he was a stud purple belt, could run over everybody out here, was beating everybody up. And he hit me up for a private one day, and found out I moved to Texas, hit me up for a private. I went and gave him a private, and he brought one of his students with him. And at the end, he asked me if I wanted to roll, and I said, sure. So and he's about 190, 200 pounds. And I tapped him a bunch of times. And he was just mind blown. And the kid sitting in the corner was just looking at me like, and the kid who was sitting in the corner is one of my black belts now. But he was sitting there watching it. And then he goes to Josh, hey, are you trying? Are you trying? He goes, yeah, I'm trying. And so the guy, Josh, ends up being a freaking crack addict. He would call me and says, hey, you have time for a private? And I was like, nah, I'm tired. 30 minutes later, he'd knock on my door. Let's just get a little roll in. And so I ended up training Josh, from the ground up. And he was a guy, I was beating him, regularly for a long time. And then he's a really, really smart guy. And he went home one day and just reverse engineered my game. And we now go and nothing happens. He's about 230 now, though. He's much bigger. But he's a very good coach. He's helped my son Lucas a lot. He cornered him for his first couple fights here in Texas. Good dude, real good dude.
But okay, so I have a question. You have, a lot of people and a lot of black belts. How many students do you have right now? I mean, how many of your gyms? How many people do you have working out with you?
At my main gym here in Texas, I have 460 students.
A lot.
Yeah, it's a solid gym. All my affiliates, I can't even tell you my affiliates. My Liverpool gym, where Patty Pimblett and Molly, who fights in the UFC, they have a ton of students there. Like my seminars there have 120 people in them. So I don't know. He's got hundreds of students in his gym in Liverpool. Yeah, combine all of them, I've got to be got to be close to 1,000 students in the
Man.
11 gyms.
We have 11 gyms.
Yeah, 11
Wow.
affiliates. I've got my main gym and then 11 affiliate gyms, but they're all
Nice.
next generation gyms.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic, man. And you know, you got to imagine every single one of those buildings has saved one person from going down a dark path. Like I think jiu-jitsu, boxing, I think MMA schools, I don't think they get the credit that they deserve in terms of social impact.
Sure. It's because they don't do it for that reason, and it just reaches out and touches so many people, but you don't typically do it, you know, to help a certain person. It just helps everybody, so you don't expect anything in return, and that's why I think they don't get the credit for it. But it definitely is. Every gym you walk into, someone's getting saved or helped.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. We'll go one more black belt. Toshido MMA founder David Lee.
Yeah, David Lee. What was he? My third maybe on the list. Huh? Was he third or fourth?
Third,
yeah. So me and David go way back to when I was going to Canada years before to teach seminars and whatnot. And I had been going to Canada all the way since '98 and doing some training up there with some of the guys that Trevor, I forget his last name, is a JKD guy that was also a jiu-jitsu guy, Clarkson maybe. And did some training up there in Canada way back when, and then I met Dave, and then Dave, I don't know if you guys know, Dave is Rory McDonald's coach, so I know Rory since he's like 14 years old, and taught him at seminars and stuff when I was up there and whatnot. But Dave Lee's he's an amazing coach. He's got a great gym up there. He's had a handful of people in the UFC now, off and on, but yeah, real good dude, big guy.
Okay. So you take 2 years off, June 11, 2009. Quinn Mulhern is your opponent. What was the reason for the time off? And tell us about the fight.
Yeah, time off was just my ribs, man. I had moved to Texas. What year was it?
It was June 11, 2009.
Yeah, so I'm in Texas for a few years now. And I didn't have a gym from the time I moved to Texas until 2011. I was just training out of my garage with Josh Bosquez and a couple other guys. And my ribs had been bad the whole time. And just trying to get that better. I felt like it was better, and went to, I took a fight in Cana Cage of all places in California. And so I went out to my brother's house or my brother's gym and trained out there for a couple weeks to get ready for the fight. And then right in the beginning of the fight, man, I hit him, took him down, and he was trying an omoplata or something, and I was dying. I ended up going to the hospital at the end of the fight because my ribs were pressuring to puncture my lung. And yeah, all Marcelo's armbar, man. This is all from Marcelo's armbar. Yeah. So I ended up tapping verbally to the referee. I was like, yeah, and just kind of waved it off. And that was the end of that.
Well, he was a future UFC veteran, so it was not an easy fight.
Yeah, he was good. You know, he was good. He was definitely beatable at any time of my career when I was healthy, but he was good. He just, yeah, the end. How many fights did I have after him?
You got 1, 2, just 2 more.
Yeah, and they were wins, and they were, I think, probably another couple years later. And
3.
Yeah, and I had gotten my injections in my ribs and stuff like that. And that was when I had opened a gym in Texas, and my kids started training, and I wanted them to be able to see me fight live because they had never seen me fight live. So they got to come to both of those fights and walk out and see me fight live. And that's why I took those fights. I was healthy at the time. I then got divorced, and like my for whatever reason, I got divorced before those fights. For whatever reason, I never lost anything again after that. I won both those fights. I won worlds 3 times. I won every jiu-jitsu match I did after that. I just I was just a lot more focused, free. I'm not sure, but
I think we see what was holding you back.
Yeah.
No.
I'm just kidding.
It was
but,
me.
But you know, so after you lost the fight where, you know, your ribs, you have to verbally submit. I mean, that had to be kind of a low point where you just kind of like, man, I can't do this anymore, because you still had the mind for it, but just physically you couldn't. I mean, talk about that a little bit. I mean, I think everybody's been to that point. All fighters like, I'm done with this. And it's kind of a tough spot, especially when you don't get to decide. You kind of decided for you in a way. How'd you feel at that point?
Yeah, it was definitely a bummer, man, because honestly, I still have the mind for it. You know, my biggest challenge retiring, you know, was actually staying retired. And I had left that night after the fight and drove to Vegas. I always go to Vegas. Went to Vegas, ended up going to the hospital in Vegas because I could barely breathe, and I was trying to figure out why. And my ribs were pressured on my lungs and whatnot. So I spent the night in the hospital, got out the next day and went to got a room at the Treasure Island. Well, the guys from Pearl Jam were there, and they had a cabana next to my cabana, and they bought me drinks all night or all day. And I didn't drink at the time, you know, I didn't drink, but I was drinking, and woo, my ribs didn't hurt anymore.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, I just, it was definitely hard. Retiring was hard. If I would go to a concert afterwards, when the band would come out and the crowd would go crazy, like all I'm thinking about is fighting, right? Like that crowd, that vibe, you know, when you walk out and everything is, I would just crave fighting and wanted to so bad. And, you know, yeah, retiring from fighting was tough. It was definitely tough for me.
I mean, Chris, I feel like the old school guys who fought, you know, before there was money involved, they fought for the love of the sport, and because that's who they were. And I don't think that's ever really gone from who you are. So at some point you have to think this is the best thing to do. It's the smartest thing to do. I don't want to keep fighting for many reasons, but it is always going to be tough, man. I've never had anybody who doesn't. If you don't want to keep fighting, I don't think you are a real fighter. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
For sure. I agree.
So Ronda Rousey had claimed that she got injured, you know, while training for the Olympics. And because of that, she had to modify her training to kind of concentrate on the ground aspects of judo. Do you think maybe that's what happened with your ribs?
So I definitely had to modify everything.
So then when you know, and go away from what you're good at, so now your ribs are healed and now you've kind of got more tools at your disposal.
Yeah, for sure. Again, when I came back and fought, the two fights I fought, I wanted to, I was turning 40, but the next 3 years at Worlds and everything after that, like I was in the best shape of my life. Like I wanted to fight mentally so bad. I won Worlds 3 times and I was going to do it again. I was going to fight again after that. And I ended up then tearing my shoulders one by one and had a bunch fall apart after that. But yeah, I found myself being mentally and physically in the best shape of my life around 40, 41 years old. It was crazy.
I think it's probably because you also took care of yourself. You know, you're not a drinker.
Yeah.
You know, do you smoke weed?
No, never have.
See?
When I was 14, 15, 16, I did coke every single day. I walked in on someone doing it. You know, I was robbing and stealing houses and cars, you know, for it, 14 years old, until I turned 16. And I was walking to a girl's house with some in my pocket and came across a gym, a weightlifting gym, and it had a half door. And I stopped and looked in and was watching this kid work out. And he came over to the door and talked to me for like 3 minutes. And he was a wrestler. And we talked for a few minutes and I walked away. And his name was Sean Westover. And I threw it in the gutter. And from that day forward, I never touched it again. And I bought a membership, started bodybuilding, and went from 120 pounds to 220 pounds in 2 years. And went from bodybuilding to bouncing and bouncing to fighting in the UFC. And fortunately, 3 years ago, I was able to find that guy on Facebook and send him a message and tell him what that 3-minute conversation did to change my life and how it has fan out to change, so many other people's
Wow.
lives. So it was
Cool.
it was cool to be able to find him and tell him that, just because, he was a high school kid. I was looking up to him in the conversation, but he was 1 year older than me in school. And it was just a, cool thing that if that guy at that age touched me like that, imagine the amount of people that I can, reach out to. So
For sure. So you mentioned Paul Rimmer, who coaches in Liverpool, England.
Yes,
Patty Pimblett, one of his students. What about Tracy Hess?
Tracy Hess is one of my OGs. I love that dude. He runs a gym. He actually is a partner now with Antonio McKee in their gym at the Body Shop in Long Beach, or I think Long Beach. Yeah, Tracy was like my third student. He and Jeremy were him and Jeremy were like best friends for the longest time. I still talk to Tracy all the time. He was a big part of Affliction. He was running the sports marketing part of Affliction, and was in with everybody, and running his gym was out of the Affliction building for a long time, for years. He had like 10,000 square feet of their facility. But also, super great dude. I actually need to go out there and put some stripes on his belt. We were just talking the other day. But yeah, I actually asked him, I was like, hey, is it cool if I come to your gym? Because I just learned last week that Antonio wants to kill me.
Antonio's a trip, man. That guy's a trip. Tim Carey.
Tim Carey. So Tim is a guy who owned my Lake Havasu gym until Lake Havasu was just kind of dead, and he ended up packing up his wife and kids and moving here. So he's here now at my gym in Texas. But I met him through one of my students, Chuck, who used to put on some events at Lake Havasu that we would fight in. And I brought Josh Hinger to one of the fights out there, and Josh fought Tim. And Josh beat Tim. And then later on, Tim joined my affiliation, and now Tim's a black belt under me. And good dude.
All right. So one of your black belts, Russ Miura, he's got a 9-1 record, but he's got 2 no contests. Do you know the reason behind that?
I don't know what the no contest reasons are.
Okay.
He's a special dude, man. He is a special teacher, a special jiu-jitsu guy. He lost in the finals to Eddie Cummins and EBI. He is a really good fighter, really good jiu-jitsu guy. He is the guy who came with me. Miguel got him in as an alternate in ADCC when I went against Marcelo, and he went against Jeff Glover. And but he was 40-0 at the time in jiu-jitsu. He had not lost a jiu-jitsu match, and had beaten some good black belts and stuff. And he was a purple belt. And he's a good wrestler, like a really good high level, fast twitch, like Javi Vasquez wrestler. And I said, what's the game plan? He goes, I'm going to pull guard. And I said, what? No, you're not. He goes, yeah, I'm going to pull guard. And I said, no, we're not fucking pulling guard. Like, why would you pull guard? You at least wait the 5 minutes and get your 2 points for the takedown. Well, I pulled guard, and I think Jeff passed a half guard or something. He won on an advantage, I believe. It was either advantage or Miguel would know, but it was a very, nothing happened in the match. And I was like, God dang, man, if you'd have been on top of him and you passed a half guard, like whatever. But yeah, he's a very good. He came, so I had an NG20, the 20-year anniversary for my next generation out here. And we had 76 people fly in from all over the world, all my
Wow.
Australia, both Liverpool and World gyms, Dublin and Belfast gyms, like all the California guys. Ian and Brad McCall came, Russ, Adam, like Tracy, everyone was there. And Russ taught a class. I had all of my black belts, all my affiliates teach a class. And there was 105 people on the mat during his class on one class. It was super cool. But it was a week-long party basically for all my guys. I took them all for helicopter rides around Frisco, where I live, and for all the affiliate owners and whatnot. It was a really cool week.
That's super cool. April 11th, 2012, Marvin Babe.
Yeah. So I was trying to fight I only wanted to fight because I opened a gym here in Texas. I wanted people to, know who I was and whatnot. I was trying to fight two guys in Texas, and both guys I couldn't get. One was a black belt from a guy, JD Shelley, out here, one of his guys, and that guy moved, I guess, and he couldn't fight. And another guy couldn't fight, so I ended up fighting an Oklahoma guy, and the event was in Oklahoma, and the guy calls a week before the fight and asks if he could have 5-pound allowance, and the fight was at 170, and I said that's fine, so we're gonna fight at 175, and I show up and the guy's 182 and he missed the 5-pound allowance by 7 pounds, and I was like, hell, so I beat the guy. I think that guy got what was the second to last fight? I armbar off his back. Like I took his back and then slid off with an armbar and finished that.
And who was the promoter?
Huh?
Who was the promoter?
Terry.
He was the okay. Now, did you guys make amends at this point?
We didn't really talk. I knew he wanted me on the card, obviously, because I'm going to sell tickets, being an hour from the event. I had a stellar corner. Josh Bosquez was in my corner. Saxon Janjira, Muay Thai, who's a savage, in my corner. And Kendall Cross, who's Olympic gold medalist wrestler, was in my corner because he was coaching wrestling at my gym. And so we went out there and destroyed, and it was great. And yeah, that was it. They called me to fight again 2 months later. And that was what was his name?
Brandon Gaines.
Yeah, Brandon Gaines. So same thing, man. Same thing. A week out, he asked for 5 pounds. I give him 5 pounds. He shows up at a 182, 7 pounds over the 5 pounds I gave him. Walking around outside, smoking a cigarette. And I was like, what the hell, in cowboy boots and jeans? And I was like, okay. So I asked Terry, this is how over fighting I was. I said, hey, can I be first fight of the night? And he's like, fuck no, you can't be first fight. I'm like, oh, come on, please, I won't be first fight of the night. And he lets me open and be the first fight of the night. And I walked out, same corner, and my kids were with me. And Kimura this guy, and finished with a move that I had really been working on a lot in the class at my new school, and finished with it and gave a retirement speech afterwards, and that was it.
So, I mean, this is way off the point, but on these two guys, they're like not even trying to make weight. Are you taking the 20% on this one? Like, yeah, you're paying me part of your money because this ain't right.
It was King of the Cage, bro. I was like, I don't know what they were getting, a couple $100. I didn't take anything from their purse. And I forgot. And my last fight, I fought for free. I told Terry, don't even pay me. I just want to fight and make me first fight of the night. And I didn't take a dime. I fought for free.
You should have missed weight. That's when you miss weight. You can take 20% of nothing.
Yeah.
Some of the old guys, got paid with a bucket of chicken. It's like, shit, man, my 10-piece became a 6-piece.
Yeah.
It's my percentage.
So you had mentioned your children. I think this is a good opportunity to talk about them. Chris, Lytle, Miguel, I will tell you, sometimes like when you see the second generation of fighters, more often than not, it doesn't work out. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Even like high-end Olympic wrestlers, a lot of times their children, they're not interested in going to the mat. You, however, Lucas Brennan, he's 5-0 in Bellator right now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
Start with Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas. Yes.
Yeah, he is a special kid, man. He started. So my kids didn't start training until 7th and 8th grade, and they started in the 7th and 8th grade because I just opened my gym, and Lucas was a soft, squishy, video games, books, the zoo art kid, and would not have defended himself if he ever got picked on. Tyler, both very sweethearts. Tyler was racing motocross, and it was a tough kid, but not a fighter at all. Neither one of them ever been in any sort of altercation in their lives. And I wanted them to start training for self-defense reasons. So they start training, and 3 months in, Tyler wants to do a Naga, and Lucas has no interest in doing a Naga. And so we go and Tyler wins. And on the way home, Lucas goes, when's the next one? And I say, I don't know. I'll find out. He goes, I'll do it. So he does it. And here, without talking about Tyler, Lucas had a 50-50 first year. Every time he'd win a match, he'd lose a match. Every time he'd win two matches, he'd lose two matches. I thought he would quit, and he just grinded harder. He just grinded harder and just grinded harder. And his determination, man, was wild to watch. And over the next 2 years, he started winning a lot of matches, then started wrestling in high school, then won kids jiu-jitsu world championships twice, and then kicked ass in high school. And his senior year of high school, or going into his senior year, we're not even a senior year, summer between junior and senior year, we had college offers for wrestling. We had the option to fight because he wanted it. We'd been talking about fighting, and we had the option to do high level jiu-jitsu. He could have just gone the high level jiu-jitsu route and done that. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, what do you think? And I said, I don't know. Like, this is 100% up to you, not me. And he goes, I would like to fight. I would like to try fighting. And I'd like to wrestle in college, but not at a high level, at a level where I could fight if I wanted to fight. So he went to UNT, which is University of North Texas, which is like NAIA, so that he could wrestle and fight if he wanted to fight. So that was his decision, and his decision was to fight. And I said, okay, here's my thought. And Texas is the only state you can fight at 17 years old legally with a
parental signature.
Yeah, parental
consent. Yeah.
So I said, you may fight and win and hate it and never want to do it again. You may lose and want to fight again right away. I said it's the most emotional thing you're ever gonna do. So if you want to do it, I say we give it a shot. So the week before his senior year started, or the 3 months, that whole summer we trained, and the week before his senior year started, he fought a 28-year-old dude married with kids. The promoter's like, do you want me to get another kid? I said, no, dude, give me an adult with a full-time job. Like, give me a grown-ass man with a beard. And sure enough, he did. And Luke trained his butt off for it, and rear naked choked him in the third round. And then he fought a week before senior year got out. He fought again and won.
Is he a big ticket seller?
Yeah.
Right back.
His whole senior class is going, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, he had tons of friends, that went, and then his teachers go, his coaches go, they still go, even though he's out of school.
That's cool.
And so then his third amateur fight there was a gap because of school, and I had already been talking to Bellator, and so we go to Vegas. He fights in Tough Enough, wins the fight there, get the call from Bellator and sign, and he fights his pro debut 5 weeks later, and he's now 3-0 as an amateur, 5-0 as a pro, all fights in Bellator.
Was he a kid that got in fights, like street fights?
Never been in an altercation, never. He is a fucking genius, and he's got a whiteboard on his bedroom wall that's the size of a 65-inch television, and it looks like the Goodwill Hunting stuff, but all of it is his fight camp breakdown, from every calorie to every training session, to every heart rate, to every recovery, to every sleep. Everything is broken down until the fight day. And when the fight's over, he comes home, erases it, he starts another one for the next one. But if you look at it, the first time I walked in, I was like, what is this? And as I looked closer, I'm like, whoa. And I just kept looking, and it took me a half hour to read the whole thing. And I was just like, holy shit. I was like, nobody approaches this game like that, and it has 4 or 5 names of fighters' videos to watch, and a breakdown and whatnot. And it literally has his everything broken down on it. And as a pro, he's been hit one time as a professional in 5 fights, one punch to his head in 5 fights. He fights so smart, and his range is so difficult to deal with. It makes
he's very fast.
and it makes you want to hit him. And you go, he's on you, and you're on the ground. And so he's such a wizard, man. It's impressive to watch. And if he gets a hold of you, he's at the very, very highest level of jiu-jitsu and MMA. And it's just going to continue to show more and more and more. And I'm taking my time with him. You know, I'm zero rush.
He's taking smart fights.
Yeah, and I never pushed him or his brother at anything hard. I never was the dad that was mad if they lost. You know, I was always there to support them and let them, like, if you're a high level athlete or mentally, no one's got to get on you about losing. You're going to be on yourself, right? So I just kind of was there for him and built him back up. And he's a stud, man. He's going to go far in this sport. He just signed a new 6-fight deal with Bellator that's very nice. And he's going to be much better than I ever was.
That's your goal.
Yeah.
You have to wonder if, you know, like myself and yourself, I mean, this sport just wasn't around when we were young. So there was really nothing we could have done with it besides whatever sport you did. But I mean, you got to wonder if him kind of being around it forever has made him kind of like understand it on different levels, even before he did it. And then he does, it's like almost second nature. Does that make sense? Maybe that's why he just understands the sport better than we'll ever understand it, because it's been around him his whole life. That's not our case. So does that make sense? You think maybe it has something to do with it? Or he's just like gifted?
For sure. I mean, he's definitely gifted. But for sure, he had to work hard, right? He wasn't athletic. He had to work hard, you know, and his you get the guys that are super talented and don't work hard, or you get the kind of talented but work their butts off, or you get the talented that work hard. And he was the not that talented that worked hard and became a super athlete. And we do a lot of stuff for his strength and conditioning and speed. And I coach everything except for his boxing and his wrestling, and all the jiu-jitsu, all the strength conditioning, all his nutrition. I take care of all of it. And he's a by the book, you know, but being around it, like once him and his brother started training, I'd have to make them take days off, and they'd call, is anyone at the gym that I could be training with right now? Don't worry about it.
Nope.
No, don't worry about it. But yeah, it's been a hell of a ride. And I'm in tears after every fight. You got to imagine how emotional it is watching him. I don't like to watch him get punched in training, so let alone a dude in a cage trying to do it. It's difficult to watch, especially for someone who's been there on every side of it, you know. So I know the good and the bad of the sport. So
your other son, and like you've obviously, Lucas, a lot of upside, Bellator, you know, somebody that's doing big things. But your other son, Tyler, has got a fascinating background as well.
His nickname's the Chosen One. He's the kid that could trip and fall on a mat and land on the guy pinned. Like he had he had a 100-match win streak in jiu-jitsu, lost a match, had another 100-match win streak. He's 293-9 and redeemed 7 of the 9. We just never saw the other 2 guys again. He is a savant on the mat. He won kids jiu-jitsu world championships 8 times. He's just so good. And once he added wrestling to it, it was unreal. Like, it was unreal. He was the athletic kid that worked hard.
What year did he start wrestling?
His freshman year in high school, and he went to state and went 2-2. His sophomore year, he went to state and lost in the finals to a kid who had won his freshman year and sophomore year. His junior year, he won. His senior year, he ran into the kid who beat him as a sophomore in the finals, who had not lost all through high school. And his senior year, Tyler beat him in the state finals.
So Jonathan Ortegon is the guy's name that you're talking about. He was about to become a 4-time state champion. Yeah. Tyler comes in, upsets him senior year, and Tyler's a 2-time state champion in Texas, obviously a very well-respected wrestling state, and he decides to go to Little Rock College.
So, first of all,
the inaugural season for their wrestling program, I might add.
Yeah. I mean, he had a few offers, but to be honest, man, the money, there's not a lot of money given for the wrestlers. unless you're like the Dayton Fix 4-time champs, you know, who competed on the national level a lot. Tyler won USA Wrestling, the national preseason nationals in Iowa his junior year. And then his senior year, he was in a 98-man bracket and ran through everybody until the finals. He lost in the finals to a kid by 2 points that had already signed with Cornell. And but Tyler was just a savage. That's the best wrestling day I think he's ever had. He just looked phenomenal. Beat multi-time state champions all the way through that day. Again, was a national champion. And so Kendall Cross is a good friend of mine. He wrestled at Oklahoma State. He's an Olympic gold medalist. And Neil Erisman, who is running the Little Rock program, also wrestled at Oklahoma State. And I was walking down the stairs at Lucas's first college tournament, and John Smith was walking up the stairs, and he said, "Hey," he goes, "how come you haven't come to see me?" And I go, "What?" And he goes, "How come you haven't come to see me at Oklahoma State?" And I said, for Tyler, and I said, "I don't know. I figure you guys only take the 4-timers and whatnot." He goes, "No, so all I keep hearing about is this kid." He goes, "Maybe you can show us some of that jiu-jitsu shit the Penn State guys are doing." And I said, "All right." He goes, here's my number. Contact me and let's get him up here for a visit. So I said, okay. So I get home and I message him on that Monday, and I didn't get a reply for a week. And a week later, another guy messaged me and said, "Coach Smith wanted me to contact you and have you come up." And I said, okay. I said, "Well, I'm going to Little Rock today. I'll message you guys on Monday." So I went to Little Rock with Tyler, and Kendall was like, "Hey, check this school out. Neil's awesome. Chandler Rogers is now the assistant coach there. Check it out. These are my friends from Oklahoma. I think Tyler's going to love it." So we went there, and he loved it, man. He wrestled and sat down with the coach and me, went to dinner and loved it. And then we left that night to drive home. And I told the coach I would let him know in the morning. And I messaged, first of all, I go to Tyler. I said, Tyler goes, "So what do you think I should do?" And I said, "No, bro." I said, "This is your decision. You know, what do you want to do?" And he said, "Well, Oklahoma State's so expensive." And I said, "We'll make whatever happen. You know what I mean?" And he said, okay, well, so I talked to Kendall, and Kendall says, "Tyler, do you want to wrestle, or do you want to say you wrestled at Oklahoma State?" And he said, "I want to wrestle." He goes, "Okay." He goes, "I'm afraid you'll get lost in the orange at Oklahoma State." You know,
Possible.
And John Smith said, "We'll put him on the roster right away, but we can't give you any money." And it's a $40,000 a year school. And he basically, you know, could sit behind 1, 2, 3 people, you know. And I know good guys who have come to my gym that wrestled at Oklahoma State. They got 12 matches in their 5 years there. You know,
and who's coming after you? Like, that's another problem.
Right. So Tyler's he said, "I want to wrestle." So he chose to go there, man. And he has hit it off with the coach so well and done so well for them. And their team just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. He was out all last year with knee surgery. So he wrestled his freshman year. And then last year, during the COVID year, he didn't wrestle, and came back this year and is doing really well right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Lucas Pace was a former fighter of yours.
Yeah.
He's 4-0 pro with a win over Bob Ostrovich, who is obviously a Hawaiian legend. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him and how come he never pursued a career in mixed martial arts, like further than 4 fights?
I'm going to throw both these guys under the bus at the same time, and they're both probably going to kill me. But
Yes.
Buck and Lucas.
You talking about Buck Greer?
Yeah. Buck
That's my
Greer and
next
Lucas
question.
Pace, both super Christian guys. Lucas, I think, was 19. Buck was about 24 or 25. Both of them were virgins. Both of them were waiting till they get married. Both of them were straight, like great kids. Lucas is named after Lucas, just to give you an FYI about that.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Really, really good kid. And just a phenomenal fighter. wanted to be a pastor, and he met a girl, and Buck met a girl. And that was the end of them.
The biggest murderer of high school athletes is a girlfriend.
Wow.
Lucas would tell me girls are poison, and he never fought again. When Buck met his wife, he never fought again. Buck was a force recon sniper. He was a freaking savage.
Well,
he still comes down. He lives here in Texas now and comes and trains with me in my gym. He lives up in Amarillo, but he's a Texas State trooper.
So Chris Lytle, this is Buck Greer. He's got a win over Laverne Clark and a split decision loss to Dennis Hallman.
Wow.
Jeez. That guy, and he had like less than like 5 or 6 fights. So you're talking
maybe like 7, but his only loss was the Daniel, I forget his name, a shoot box guy. We fought in Brazil in the Amazons in that jungle fight. Flew from there to LA, spent the night in LA, flew to Guam, and he fought Laverne Clark.
Triangled him.
Yeah.
He really could have went far.
Man, in my opinion, and I know it's going out on a limb, he's the guy, he's the Chris Weidman. He's the guy that would have beat Anderson Silva. He had the game and the mentality and the size and the athleticism and strength to beat him. And he was a huge 185er. He fought a 205 a couple times, but he was a huge 185er and just had that style.
What about Josh Hinger?
What about him?
Well, I mean, he's Jiu Jitsu guy. I got like a domestic happening outside. I don't know if you guys can hear the yelling. But I mean, student of yours as well, am I correct?
Yeah, he was phenomenal. Great fighter. He only fought 4 times, I think. Had really good jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and left. When I moved here, he went to, I forget where he went first, but then he ended up with Andre Galvão, got his black belt from him. He got white through purple with me, and I think brown and black from him. But sorry, my cough comes on at nighttime. I was fortunate to be at Nogi Worlds in San Francisco with Lucas when Josh won his first year. So I got to be there for him to win the first year. He won 3 times also, but I was happy to be there for him because he had tried a couple times before and not won, and then won 3 in a row. But he's a tough dude, man. Tough, really solid jiu-jitsu, great arm drags and back takes. Good wrestling.
Lucas Perdida, he taught at Hickson's gym. You were there with him at the time, am I correct?
Luis?
Yes, Luis. I apologize.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on him?
He was one of the guys I was telling you. So I was at Hickson's for about a year, but never met Hickson. And he was one of the ones teaching the classes all the time. They call him Limao.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I honest to God, I wasn't there very much because Hickson was never there. So I ended up training with Mark and Dave in Laguna Niguel, who was an affiliate of them. But he was.
Was it hard to pay dues to a place that the owner wouldn't show up?
I mean, it was weird. Yeah, it was weird.
I mean, did you ever ask any questions like, "Are you sure this is his place?"
Are you sure this is his? Yeah, I was only there. I had a membership there for a year, but I didn't train there the whole time because I was training with Dave and Mark Eckert.
Yeah, you've got was it about Dan? Was it Maes? Is he a politician?
Maes, no. Here's the savage behind me.
There he is, right there. Yeah.
2 weeks out tomorrow, or 2 weeks out this Friday.
Nice.
That's good. That's good. Well, Chris Brennan, I'm going to tell you, man, like your career in general, like you're 2013 IBJJF black belt no-gi world champion, 2014 no-gi world champion IBJJF, 2015 it's your Pan Ams, 2014. Between 2013 and 2015, you had 20 grappling matches where only 4 total points were scored against you.
Wow.
Yeah. One was a takedown. I don't even know how I don't know the other 2 were scored, but yeah, one was a takedown in might have been my first Worlds. That's why I was saying, man, I worked so long when I got here with Josh Bosquez and me really dissecting my stuff and my Kimura game and my 10-finger guillotine game. And my Kimura got so good that I wanted to go to Marcelo's just to show it to him, because he tells people that the Kimura is a strength move. And I just wanted to do it on him so he could feel it. And because every time I touch a black belt with my Kimura, they're like, whoa, before I even crank it, it's so tight. And that's how I won my last MMA fight, because I'd been working on a lot. But then in Nogi Worlds and Nogi Pans and the Austin Open and a couple of smaller tournaments, but that I did right before Worlds, I submitted everybody but like 2 people from the same position that I've been working on. And these are all black belts. Toby Amata. Toby Amata, I ran into at a tournament and did my textbook home base position and tapped him with it. And I didn't even know it was him. I was driving home. My friend's like, "Did you just beat Toby Amata?" I was like, "No, I don't think so." And he goes, "Is this him?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, that's Toby Amata." I was like, "Oh shit." But my jiu-jitsu got so much better in the last, I don't know, 10 years, 8 years here, that I was confident, and just every time I grab a hold of somebody, I was like putting it on.
Was it mentally? Do you think you were able to just kind of figure out the equations faster, or what do you attribute it to?
Yeah, definitely that. And like I said, when I got divorced, my mind was much different. I had a lot of stress during my marriage. I was a moron. And once I was free of all of that and just kind of on my own and started to do my own thing, everything just kind of clicked for me. And it's unfortunate that it didn't happen at the same time. My body was young. I won Worlds in 13, 14, 15, and then I had surgery in 16, 17, and 19.
Yeah.
So and I'd never had surgery my whole career, but I made it through, and then, had my shoulder, then my bicep, then my other shoulder and bicep. And so, then the following year I wanted to do it again, and it was COVID, so yeah, then I got COVID really bad. So now I'm not doing anything.
I mean, look at this guy. No surgeries, no cuts. What's going on here? It's like some kind of superhero.
It's a robot.
I'm the opposite.
Him and Jeremy Horn.
They're
aliens. They're lizard people.
Man,
so
we're on to you.
So Chris Brennan, you rolled with one of Miguel's favorite guys, Rico Chiapparelli. How good was he?
Better than me.
Really?
I mean, at the time I was a blue belt. He just popped in this gym. I was teaching in this little gym called Boxing Works at Hermosa Beach. And he walks in and he was wrestling, or had been wrestling in Cal State Bakersfield. Is that where he wrestled?
Yeah. Yes.
And he came in with this big black guy who replaced Tito at Tito's weight at Cal State Bakersfield. And I rolled that guy first, and I tapped him a couple times. And then I went with Rico, and I don't know if we went live first or what happened, but I got side control on him, and he arm triangled me while I was in side control on him. And I was like, "You can't do that." And he goes, "Obviously I can." And so I made him show it to me. And then he says, "Well, check this out. Give me your back." So he takes my back and he rear naked chokes me with an arm inside. And both ways. He could put his arm either way and rear naked choke me with my arm inside. And that's something that Lucas does all the time now. But I was just like, whoa. So I went back to Hoist. I'm like, Hoist, this dude arm triangle me was in side control. "No, you can't do that." I was like, "No, you can." And who knows? I was a blue belt at the time. I mean, if I'm in side control on you now, you're not arm triangling me, right? And or I'd say you can't rear naked choke me with my arm inside, but he might. But yeah, he was super talented. And not only was he talented, he had a reputation for just being the guy, like everyone knew that he was a badass. People couldn't wait to see him fight. I think he only fought one time, and it was like way, way, way after everyone wanted to see him fight. But he coached a lot of the great guys, man. The Randy, Lindland, like all those guys at the beginning were training under that guy at Raw.
Yeah, he started Raw, and then they went their separate directions, and he's still got a gym in California.
Oh, does he?
It's shocking to me that he's just not producing stud after stud after stud. I mean, he's very well respected by like the jiu-jitsu forefathers, in regards to what they think of him, and as well as yourself and us. But I don't know. It hasn't translated in a lot of his students. Like, you've got over 20 black belts that have been with you, for a long time, and the roots of his tree don't go as deep.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking.
I mean, I don't know how, if he loves coaching. I love teaching, man. I love coaching and teaching and whatnot. So you can tell when I'm teaching every night on the mat, there's passion there still now. And I think that's what creates other really good guys, so I know that he's a good coach for fighters, I think, but I don't know what he's like, teacher wise.
And like you're saying, coaching isn't all having the most knowledge. If you have the most knowledge, and it's about being able to send it to other people and have them respect them the way you do. I mean, there's a lot to it. Maybe he just doesn't do. Maybe he's really good in some ways and just doesn't do something quite right. I don't know. Just a guess.
Yeah. Chris Brennan, as a bouncer, you had a few altercations. One was with a pro athlete, a football player.
Dang.
He knows everything.
Yeah, like that was at a club called Kokomo's, in Irvine, California. I believe he was a cowboy. I don't even remember. But yes, I did get up in a fight with a pro football player when I was bouncing. I was working at that time. The next one you're going to bring up, I wasn't bouncing. I went looking.
Did you get your hand raised after that altercation with the football player?
I never lost a street fight.
Okay.
Never.
Sounds like Mark Coleman and his father with that statement. Everlast.
So Everlast is a different story. Everlast he called my friend and was with my friend's girlfriend and was talking shit, saying he was banging my friend's girlfriend. So I found out he was going to be at this Newport Beach nightclub called the Warehouse. And I went there.
Was he famous at this point?
Oh, he was at House of Pain at that time. So it's him and probably 4 or 5 big black guys. And I didn't give him a chance. I went up straight from behind him, punched him in the back of the head, jumped on him, and started choking him. We hit the ground. Well, I knew if I wasn't going to be able to confront him from the front with all 4 of these guys, they weren't going to give me a chance. They dragged me, and we're deep in this bar. They dragged me from inside the bar all the way across the wood floor, up like 2 steps out the front door into the street before I ever let go of the choke. I was choking this dude forever, and his guys were soccer kicking my head, soccer kicking my ribs, and I was just trying to bury myself next to him while I was doing it. But he went to sleep for a bit.
It must have been a good friend of yours.
I head stomped him on the way out as I was getting picked up off of Mahenzo style.
Nice.
Did you guys ever make amends?
I never saw that guy again. No. Fuck him.
And your friend.
I do like some of his normal stuff now, though. It's not bad.
Actually, his acoustic stuff's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Did your friend, was he there with you, at least shielding you?
No. He didn't know I was going there. I went there because I found out where he was going to be through somebody else. And I used to bounce at the Warehouse, so I knew I was going to get away with it.
You're a good friend.
Dude, that's the best friend, man.
I got your back.
I guess.
Yeah, that was a crazy one. He's not that big, but the dudes that were with him were big, man. I had lumps on my head for 2 weeks.
So, Chris Brennan, if you had to give some advice to other coaches? I mean, you've been around a lot of circles. You've probably made some mistakes. You've learned from them. Now you're older, obviously a very successful gym owner. You got affiliates all over the world. What advice would you give a fellow gym owner?
Man, one thing is going to happen for sure. No matter how hard you try, no matter how happy you think you're making people, you're going to make people upset. You know, probably the people you're doing the most for are going to be the ones that burn you. And it happens all the time. I've had, you know, guys that I brought up from the ground up, you know, all of a sudden feel like I never gave them anything, you know, and I think that happens a lot. People see other people leave gyms and go to other gyms, and it is a tough sport, and personalities are, you know, they are what they are. And this is a tough guy sport, right? So I've done my best to keep as many people as happy as I could, but at the same time, I'm real and I'm raw and I'm not fake. So what I say or what I'm thinking is going to come out of my mouth, and sometimes that's what they want to hear. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes if it's not, that's, you know, they're able to take it and move on, and sometimes people aren't. So, you know, as a business person, I could have done better in business if I kissed more people's asses, probably. But that was just never my style through my career and or in business. And I just feel like being myself is what's got me to where I'm at today. Being honest with my kids has got me and them to where they are today. And I just feel like as a coach, you have to be the same. You have to be honest. You know, any bullshit or any telling somebody there's something they're not, you know, I'm going to tell people right off the bat. You know, I get people to walk in my gym. If I sign up today, when can I get my first fight? I was like, never, bro. Like, I don't know, a long time, you know, like I'm going to be real with you, because I've seen it all, you know, in this sport, just like I'm sure Chris has and you know, everybody else. So I think if you want to get into the sport, find a good gym, find a good coach, find a good team of guys, people you vibe with. And if you're a coach, you know, just be honest, be real with your guys, and dedicate, you know, yourself to it. I've dedicated literally the last 10 years of my life to my kids' training, you know, to like literally everything I do is based off of what they're doing. And I've succeeded enough in my life to where I'm happy, but I want to make sure that they've got the best of everything and they've got every opportunity they can. So in building my gym, you know, it's built around them. They're going to teach there. They're going to own it later. You know, Lucas already teaches there. Tyler does when he's home. But I just feel like my family vibe there is something that's helped it really be a big successful thing and have so many students there. And then, you know, I treat all my guys and girls the same, you know, all my fighters, all my coaches from other gyms. You know, I try to do everything I can to keep everyone happy. And like I said, you're not going to keep everyone happy, but, you know, I feel like being real and keeping most people happy is better than being fake and keeping everybody happy, because that's bullshit.
Hey,
You know,
Chris, let me ask you, let me jump in here. I mean, you're a guy, I think you're one of the quintessential guys that I think, you know, paid your dues. You know what I mean? Well, so we're talking about you giving advice. How do you give advice to an affiliate student like a Patty Pimblett that maybe some people may perceive hasn't really paid his dues, and he's kind of overstepping, maybe that's not the right word. That's the modern game. But how would you give advice to a guy like that, maybe who hasn't, you know, taken the hard path yet or seen the hard times?
Yeah. He's had hard stuff in Cage Warriors, or is that where he's
20 plus fights outside of the UFC. Yeah.
Personality wise, it would be tough for me if, like, say Lucas was that way. That would be tough for me. Or if I had to coach Connor, you know, that would be tough for me. Actually, Connor was, when I worked with him, he was very into what I was saying, paid attention like a great student would do.
Well, let's frame this. So Conor McGregor, you went and trained him for the Nate Diaz rematch.
Yeah.
How does that come together?
Did we not talk about that yet?
I don't know.
Oh, so John Kavanaugh come out to my gym in California years and years ago with Dave Jones, who ended up owning my Dublin gym. And they came out and stayed at my gym, came to my parents' house and swam and barbecued and whatnot. And we just became good friends. I went back and taught seminars at John's gym numerous times. I have a crazy private story, teaching privates in his garage at John's. And then a couple of years ago, me and the boys are in Europe teaching seminars at all my gyms. And I messaged Connor, or I messaged John, and I was like, hey, are you in town? He goes, yeah, come by. So we went by, and Connor was in the middle of a roll and hops up off the mat and comes over and shakes my hand and introduces himself, and then goes back over and finishes rolling. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Geez. And then
he's old school. You're an old school head, bro. You know what I mean? He's giving you respect.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's supposed to happen.
So before this, I'm in Vegas cheering on Chad Mendez when he's fighting Connor, right? Because I couldn't stand his personality. I couldn't stand his personality. And so now me and the boys are off to the side talking to John on the mat, playing around a little bit. And Connor comes over, shakes my hand again, talks, takes a picture, sees me showing something, and John talking to me about my jiu-jitsu. And then it was it. We left. I messaged John back and forth after I left, telling him that was cool. John or Connor was cool, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we're going to be in Vegas in 2 weeks. You want to meet us in Vegas and work with them? And I was like, seriously? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, fuck yeah. So I flew out to Vegas, worked with him. I was actually shocked because Dylan Dennis was there as well and was super nice and respectful, sat in on my sessions with him and drilled the moves that I taught, and it wasn't the typical Dylan Dennis. I was like, is everyone on an acting thing going on right now? Like, what the hell?
Best behavior.
Might be punked.
Yeah, it might be punked. Where's Ashley Kutcher?
It's nice.
But it was a super cool experience, man. And what happened was, and this is where it went downhill, and I didn't know it, but he asked me, I'm showing him a defense to something. He asked me, show me something that I can counter and submit Nate with. And I said, you're not going to submit Nate. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, bro, like, you could knock him out and jump on top of him, and he'll put a triangle on. That's just the way they fight. Like, you're not going to, don't try to submit him, because I'll be the guy that coaches you into trying to submit somebody that's going to submit you. I said, stick to your game, do this and do that. And so we drilled and drilled and drilled after that. Well, he went on and he used 30 seconds of what we went over happened in the fight, and it worked perfectly, and that was literally the only time they were near a clinch or on the ground in that second fight, and he won the fight. I messaged John later and was trying to figure out if I could get in on the next one, and he goes, and I said, what's up? He goes, he can't really have someone tell him no. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, he can't have someone tell him he can't do something. And I was like, I still didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, well, we told him that he couldn't submit Nate. I was like, he fucking can't submit Nate. Like, I'm real, bro. Like, I'm gonna, someone in his corner needs to fucking tell him that he can't, right? And
well, you'd hate for him to lose a fight going for something he's not going to get.
Of course, or go for a submission and getting submitted himself then.
And his jiu-jitsu is pretty solid. It's much better than people give him credit for. He just, by the time he gets to the ground, he's tired, because that's his problem, is his conditioning. But he just, Nate and Nick, you're not just gonna submit those guys without really fucking hurting them. And I was just being honest. I was like, I'll be real with you, like, you're not gonna. And so I guess that didn't go over well. And we're still cool, but just can't be coached by someone who can be honest.
You should have showed him just like a rear naked choke when you got both hooks in. Like, if you get right here, I'm pretty sure you'll get him. You're not gonna get.
Yeah, but you're not gonna get.
Go. Hey, if you can get here, here's what you do: you squeeze really hard, and he taps. That's what you can get him with. I promise. If you get both hooks in and under his neck, it's over. But you're not gonna get that. I mean,
what
else can you say, man?
Yeah, after you hit that bag a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, knock him down, pretty much knock him out, and then you can choke him.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, if the referee doesn't stop it, go ahead and choke him then.
So Chris Brennan.
Hold on. Chris, you set us up. There's
Dylan
some type
Donis.
of. Well, that's number 2. The first one I want to hear about is some
The
crazy
garage.
private in a garage. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So,
Irish people don't resolve problems with lawyers and stuff. They usually figure things out, in a simpler way.
I'm in my hotel room, and John calls me and says, "Hey, do you want to teach a private to me and Dave Roche?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "Okay, we'll come pick you up. Be ready in an hour." And this is my first trip. This is my first trip to the UK. First trip to Europe. First trip to Ireland. I'd only met
Ireland's
John.
a beautiful country.
Oh yeah, I'd only met John in my my house in California, and then I was coming out. I was going to teach a seminar, but I hadn't done it yet. So he says, "Want to meet me and do it private?" So I said, "Sure." So they pick me up, and we drive and we roll up in an alley to a garage door, and I'm looking around, and we get out of the car. He opens the garage, walks in, and pulls a string light bulb and closes the garage. And that's the light in the garage, and there's mats on the floor. And I go, well, "What do you want to do?" And John goes, "Dave will go first." I said, "What do you want to do, Dave?" He goes, "You want to just put on the gloves and go?" And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You want to put on the MMA gloves and just go at it?" And I was like fight? And he goes, "Yeah."
No.
And I'm looking, I was like, "Are you serious?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "All right."
You can't say no. You can't.
I
You're
can't
like
say
Lytle.
no.
You can't say no.
So I put the gloves on, and I beat the fuck out of this guy for a half an hour. Tap him numerous times to submissions, to strikes, to he's cut.
You're hitting hard.
Oh, bro, I'm
Like
scared. I'm scared. I beat the shit out of him. And maybe as the 20 minutes went on, 15 minutes went on, I started to back off a little bit because I knew, where I stood and with him and whatnot. But yeah, I beat him up and submitted him and did everything for half an hour. And I get done and I'm like, whew,
That's not really a
man,
private.
okay? I said, "You okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm great. I'm great." He goes, "Man, Shaolin, Nogueira, all these guys, every one of them said no. No one would say yes to me." He goes, "I can't believe you said yes to me." And I was like, Jesus Christ. So I was like, "John, what do you want to do?" He goes, "I just want to go over some Kimuras." And I was like,
You up next, John? Come on.
yeah, I was like, Jesus. But yeah, man, we fought for a half an hour in this guy's garage in a private lesson. It was wild.
Nuts.
I should have been paid.
And he asked only because he expected you to say no.
Most likely, yeah.
He's probably like, "Damn it." He said yes.
Those friggin' Irish are incredible, man. They really are.
They're nuts.
So
Well, that's not fair. Probably he probably had 4 or 5 pints in him by that time. That's not cool. Beating up a drunk guy like that.
So when you look at our overall downloads of our podcast, I mean, Chris, this series with you has been an absolute hit. Like our numbers have increased across the board, even with interviews. People are digging into the old interviews. And our number 2 country is Australia. So you have Marcus McKeever. I could not, anything with Australia we're mentioning here. So it's one of your black belts. Why don't you run us through him?
So he's a guy that he's from Australia, but he was living in Liverpool, and he was training under Paul. I met him in Liverpool when he was training with Paul. He moved to Australia, brought me to Australia for some seminars, and we opened a gym in Australia in Perth. Good dude. Australia's crazy.
Especially right now.
Oh yeah, right now it's out of control. But
what's wait, Chris Brennan, Ireland, you said you really enjoyed, and it could be a little rough. So Australia is the prison of Ireland from over 100 years ago. So now you kind of get the genetic delinquents from Ireland. So go ahead about Australia.
I mean, I also have a gym in Dublin and just next to Belfast in Northern Ireland. That's a little different as well. But yeah, the Marcus, he's been training with me for, I don't know now, probably about 7 years. Another guy over there who's under me now, Steve Kennedy. That guy's off his rocker. He's had a lot of fights. I think he fought Dean Lister. But he's another guy. That whole area over there is just, it's a lot of fun to go teach seminars to. The parents are all into it. The use of the word cunt is unbelievable in the kids class. in front of the parents in the kids class. It's just wild the way they talk, and you're just like, whoa. I'm thinking, if I said that one time in my class, my kids' class would be empty.
With a lot of Yelp reviews. Yeah.
Just a different culture for sure.
Chris, have you ever, like, I've been to Australia a few times, but I've only been to the east side. I've never been to far west where Perth is. I mean, I've heard it's beautiful over there. Never been there. Have you been to both sides, and is it much different?
Now I've been to both sides. I'd only been to Perth for like 4 or 5 times. The last time I went was a really cool trip. I taught a seminar in Melbourne. Melbourne?
There's Melbourne and Sydney.
Sydney, yeah. Well, the night before, the guy calls me and says, hey, the UFC starts at 8 in the morning. Do you want to do the seminar at 6? And I was like,
no.
In the morning? He goes, yeah, I'll give you a ticket to the UFC. And I said, yeah, fuck it, sure. So I taught the seminar at 6 in the morning. I get a hold of Dana, and Dana gets me 2 second-row seats. And this is, again, after all mine and Dana's shit. And I got to watch Adesanya and Whitaker from the second row.
Nice.
And yeah, that was awesome. That place is massive. Marvel Stadium was massive. And so I taught the seminar, went to the UFC. So this guy went to give me a ticket, and I ended up giving him a ticket, and he gave his ticket to somebody else and came and sat with me. And yeah, it was just a super cool time. And I actually went from there to Bali for a few days, and then from Bali to Perth, where I taught again the following weekend.
The thing I liked about fighting in Australia, I mean, you know, you fight in Vegas, nobody shows up for the prelims. They could be the best fight on the card, nobody's there. At Australia, from the first prelim fight to the last fight, they're rocking it, man. They love it. They're really good fans over there.
Oh, you fought there?
I fought there twice. Yeah.
Was that tough with the time?
I mean, somewhat, but you know, I fought in Japan a lot and all that. So
Yeah.
you just get used to it. I figured if I get there like a week early, 6 days early, and you know, I try and get on their time right away. I make sure as soon as I get there, I land, I run, and I stay up till whatever nighttime it is. I break a sweat, and you know, no matter how it is, once I get on their time, it's only about 3 days, and I'm fine.
Nice.
Brandon Bannister.
Man, he's my big teddy bear. He's my 330-pound black belt.
Next generation Frisco owner.
Yeah. No, I'm the owner. He teaches my noon class.
We're gonna be nice, Chris. He's the owner. We're not gonna admit my notes are off. Okay. I got guys in the comments section that are very mean to me. He's the owner.
He's a big teddy bear, man. He's a monster on the mat, and just a sweetheart of a guy. But yeah, he runs my noon class now. He took over my noon class once I got sick when I was in the hospital and stuff. He's been teaching it ever since then. Awesome guy.
Roger Myers.
So Roger owns my Next Generation
Elite.
Anna gym.
Yeah.
What's that?
Elite BJJ.
Yeah, Elite BJJ, NG Anna. It's in Anna, Texas. It's only about 40 minutes from my gym. Also, one of my black belts, been with me since day one. He is a great guy. He's he tries to make it out to my gym when he can, but he started off in his garage and then just grew and grew and grew. And I kept telling him, so you're gonna be 100 students soon. You're gonna be 100 students soon. And he messaged me a couple months ago, 100. You know, and now he's over that and just growing. And he's in a small place, like not a small building, but a small city. And it's a small place that's growing. And he just got like a really great program going. Lots of cops, lots of kids. Good stuff.
You had mentioned police officers. You know, I think the one thing in law enforcement that, you know, the armchair people say is they all need jujitsu, you know, and you can't argue against that. Colton, was it Roelofs?
Yeah.
One of your police officers that is one of your black belts.
He is a savage. He is don't get pulled over by that guy. He's super nice, but like he's Kimura people out of their car. He was breaking black belt's arms with Kimuras as a blue belt under me. He got his black belt in under 5 years, 4 years and something.
Wow.
Freak. And wins. He's like 4 wins, I think, in fight to win pros against, fight to win on the stage thing.
Yeah.
And he's been killing it in those. He's a phenomenal athlete, but he's like a juggernaut. The guy is 205 pounds, 210 pounds of just animal.
Yeah. So we're hitting the 2-hour mark, and there's obviously a lot of other black belts we didn't get to mention. Vince Perez, Greg Greiger, Tim Carey, Eric Niehick, Clark Miller. I mean, Jason Bowers. It's you've continuously surrounded yourself with really, really good people, and I think that's one of the benchmarks I look at if I'm going to make friends with somebody or I'm going to do business with them. I want to see who their friends are, who they've surrounded themselves with. And, you've got an all-star list. I don't think anybody could argue that.
Thank you. It's awesome to see like Dave Lee with Rory and those guys, and Paul Rimmer with
Rodney Moore,
Patty and all those guys. My gym in North Ireland, Norman Park won. He's out of that gym. He won the Ultimate Fighter Challenge or whatever it was called. Just like
Garrett Ford, another good guy.
Yeah. Garrett Ford owns Ground Fighter Clothing too. It's a pretty good sized clothing company that's doing right now. But yeah, man, just awesome tree branches growing off everything. It's pretty cool. Can't wait to see what my kids do with it.
That's going to be frightening.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, a lot of this, I mean, obviously it's just because you've done the right thing. You've done the work, and, people respect what you've done. So that, man, really appreciate all you've contributed. And, man, thank you even for your time, man. Appreciate it.
Chris, I've been a massive fan of yours for a long time, dude. I'm so pumped to be on your podcast. I appreciate it.
Hey, likewise, man. It's been,
it's so funny. I want you on it.
Okay. It's just so funny. Like the old school guys, you knew everybody, man. It was so cool back in the day. Like there was only a handful of people, so you kind of knew and respected most of the guys. I love it when I don't even care if I didn't like him back in the day. Now I see him, I'm like, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? It's just, I love it. And I even love one thing you said earlier, talking about when you were teaching as a blue belt. I mean, that's kind of unheard of now in a way. I mean, maybe not really, but it's just, I remember when there was like 5 blue belts in the state of India, like there was just none, you know what I mean? Like back in 2000 or 2009, I was like, he's a blue belt. It was like, that was such a high benchmark. Oh my God, he's a blue belt. There wasn't. So it just, hearing that stuff brings me back. I love it.
Awesome.
You knew all the black belts, and now you don't even know all of Chris Brennan's black belt. You know what I mean?
It's like crazy.
Because literally we come from the time where when we watch fights, we could say, I pretty much watched every fight in the world right now. You know what I mean? I got my tapes from Brazil. I got my tapes from Japan. I got a tape from Russia. I got my tapes from Holland. I've seen every fight going on right now. It's like,
if a guy
say that anymore.
UFC, you knew if he was full of shit or not. Now he could be. Now you don't know. Maybe he did fight in the UFC.
I fought there last week. I wouldn't know.
I actually negotiated in Costa Rica with a doorman who told me he fought in the UFC in Nicaragua, and I was like, "Are you serious? Like, I mean, so he's like, yeah, no, it was in Nicaragua, So anyway,
are you sure it wasn't a Kumite?
Yeah.
Yes.
And obviously we're trying to get through Phil Eli, another one, real good guy. I'm sure you're familiar with him. You've it's just one all-star. Dan Zaleski. I mean, you've got one all-star after another. These people I'm all familiar with, whether they're teaching at one of your schools or competing.
Dan actually came up under Rob Kahn and then came to.
Dude, I love Rob.
Yeah, he got his black belt from me, but he came up to brown under Rob and then moved here and was training with me.
Nice.
Yeah, Rob was very talented. He's just outside the dirty dozen in regards to black belts under Hoist. Obviously, you rolled with them. Wow. Chris Brennan, man, I'm going to be honest with you. Like this podcast, Chris Lytle has allowed Miguel and I to touch base and intimately get to know people that, we would normally never cross paths with. And, I have a short list of people that I've always kind of, wanted to pick their brain and really go over their lives. And, you're at the top of that list. And I sincerely appreciate your time, both of you guys. Truly an honor for that of myself to have participated in this process.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Chris,
Love it,
Been
man.
awesome.
You're killing it out there.
if you look out your window and there's a dude with binoculars, it might be Mike.
It's me.
Okay.
Excellent. Be good. Chris Brennan, nice meeting you, brother.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, wait, Brennan, we're doing Abu Dhabi Jiu Jitsu Pro in Orlando in April. We haven't made the announcement yet, but
Can you give me Marcelo first?
dude, I got you. I'm gonna get you Marcelo, and I got Glover for your other guy, 100%. But
What a good guy.
if you're there, I'm getting my picture with you, brother.
Awesome.
Take care.
Well, we got another deep dive in the books, Chris Brennan, and I think we're finished with Chris Brennan. But I don't want to be finished. It's like
No.
so I don't know.
No.
Great job, Chris. Thank you very much. This was our 4th edition with him, Mike. Your thoughts here as we're coming off of this?
He's just so fascinating, like.
Yeah, we talk about checking off all the boxes. He knows how to spin a story too. You know what I mean? He knows how to bring out little. He was definitely a guy that I think, and I hope to run into a lot more guys like this, because I think that there is a vacuum that they haven't told their story, like that.
No, and like if you look at like Mike Tyson's HBO special, Undisputed, phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. Guys like Chris Brennan, they have the material to go on tour. Now, do they have the Mike Tyson name recognition? Obviously, very few people in this world do. But like the Mark Holmans, the Chris Brennans, Chael Sonnen, obviously, those guys, they could go on tour together and put together like a routine that I think MMA fans from all over the world would pay to see. It's just, I don't know, man. Like Chris Brennan is, as much as he's done, with his gym and with his kids and with the students and their fight world, it's almost like we as fans are missing a guy going from venue to venue, a couple hundred people, just to hear what it is he's accomplished and have it come out of his mouth. And, in 8 hours, I think we've got a lot of that, but undoubtedly there's more, that we didn't cover.
Yeah, he talked about doing his own podcast, and that'd be cool. There's so much there. I'm like I said, I'd like to get back to him and maybe do a second generation podcast, because his kids fighting, and we got
like a round
Antonio McKee's kids fighting. You got Lance Gibson, who we have some connections to. He hasn't been on the podcast, but he's fought for me, Lance. So Matt Hume's student. So I think we can make some of these guys that are working on a second generation kid and do a totally separate podcast. And Brennan would be, one of the guys that people walk out and be like, yeah, he's worth listening to.
Look at Bob Ostovich from Hawaii. His daughter's just did bare knuckle boxing and, beat Paige Van Zandt and, competed in the UFC. Like there's just certain guys that are just 100% the real deal.
Yeah, and even that extends itself, even in the second generation is coming up. Joe Jordan's kid is like a totally nationally ranked wrestler. Like he's 15 years old, so he's still a minor, and he may want to wrestle his whole life and not, participate in MMA. But when you got a 50 fight club dad,
it's happening,
pushing you and stuff, and you've already got national recognition because of your skill. Barrett Jordan is a kid to watch. Rich Clemente is another. I think his kids are younger too, but like
little savage kids.
There's so many, and I'm sure I'm missing some.
Well, here,
so
Sam Stout just had a child.
Yeah, I'm sure he's
got by the age of 4, the kid might have cauliflower ear. Like it's gonna happen.
Well, Sam doesn't do much grappling, so we'll see.
No, but I think his kid will.
Sorry, Sam.
For sure.
So definitely, Chris Brennan in the books goes down in a historic interview. We'll see what we do for an encore here at the Lights Out podcast. But I think
Miguel, that opens up the book where this multi-part series here. What did you enjoy most about it? our 4 sessions with Chris Brennan. I certainly have mine, but I'll wait for you to respond.
Well, I think Chris was easy to work with, right? I think we set a schedule and we got to it, and we sort of knocked them out in a short period of time. I think that really helps stay motivated. And so that's a little bit of cooperation on his part, and for anyone else thinking, yeah, I'm going to do that, if you're going to commit to it, do it. You know what I mean?
Well, in our end too, like it took a lot of commitment on our end to.
Yeah. We got to get, people we're trying to tape with around the world, setting times and stuff like that. So, Chris sacrificed to do this for us too. So yeah. I'm very grateful for that. Obviously, he had the stories to back it up and stuff. My favorite part, though, I think, was knowing that we were going to be able to come back and maybe get him with, a little different angle on something or a question I forgot. The first, that feeling of I forgot to ask him this. Haunts me for some interviews. With Brennan, I'm okay.
I agree. And I think my favorite part was hearing about Robert Ziegler taking private lessons with Rickson because, Joe's son was paying for it in order to teach Chemo what it is he had learned so that he could fight Royce at UFC 3. And I'm doing an article on Full Contact Fighter right now on that instance. And what I really like most, Joe Sonny got punched in the balls by, Keith Hackney, he went to Japan. He was a, rapist, blah, 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 blah. What people they fail to kind of recognize is that the illegal activities that he was involved with gave him a lot of attention. It's like it drew a lot of attention to him pre-UFC. And when we asked Chris, what do you think he was involved in? You saw the wheels going, and he goes, I'm not real sure. It's not something I really want to speak on.
It could be anything, It could be anything with that guy. But
Chris isn't afraid to speak. The guy's locked up in jail, permanently. The people that he was dealing with, even had Chris Brennan go, well, I don't want to speak on things I didn't have direct knowledge of. So it's just clearly illegal activity.
Yeah, no, like I said, Chris was around. Those are first generation names, Chemo, Joe, Joe San and stuff like that. So that's the great benefit of getting really into the time. And I think we got another guy that we're sort of planning the same thing for. I'm not going to reveal any names, but it's somebody that his resume holds water as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you can like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a review. Miguel, I noticed you haven't checked the iTunes reviews lately. I swear that's not one of my boxing students that put the last review up. He probably doesn't even listen to our podcast. Kid owed me a favor. I yelled at him. Next day I see that show up. I'm going to assume it's not him and it's just a regular fan. But at the end of the day, if you guys could do that, it's like giving us a tip. We're not asking you for any money.
Cade swallows. He's ganging up on me here. Cade, sick him.
Right. You better get your kids' phones, Cade, and leave some more reviews because Miguel, this is not one of those like Carlos Diaz left. But either way, if you guys can leave a review on iTunes, it actually pushes us up in the algorithms, and one day it might get recommended as something that people should listen to. And we're noticing a pretty big growth. We need bigger growth in order for this thing to pay for itself. But, as of right now, by doing that, it really helps us out. So, Miguel, that is it. That is all I got.
Chris Brennan, par 4.
Wait,
Chris.
Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Pro, April 16th in Orlando, Florida. Register on Smooth Comp right now. Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Pro. If you guys like the pajama grappling, we also have got some no-gi stuff, but it's the Orlando qualifier. And, please, all belts, all ages. It'd be awesome to see some people there.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.